Welcome and thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. If this is your first time participating in a Cancer Support Community Atlanta program, we invite you to visit our website, cscatlanta.org, and complete a new attendee form to stay connected to all future programs. Everyone, welcome to Warming Winter Stews, today's cooking presentation where Ashley will be cooking from our new Cancer Support Community Atlanta kitchen.
Hey everybody! All right, okay, cool. So we are in a brand new kitchen. It's interesting because it looks similar to the old space, except for it's not. So it's actually awesome, and I cannot wait until you guys are able to come here and see it. It's really, really nice. So we're doing warming soups today, and I've got two different soups that I'm going to cook for you, and they're both pretty easy, and they're also super, super flavorful, to let you guys know.
Yeah, I entered it into the chat box, and you can also find it on our website, cscatlanta.org, under the Nutrition tab.
So you guys can follow along if you would like. Now, let me grab a recipe. We're going to start with the red lentil and sweet potato stew, which is the first one listed. And this is sort of an Indian-inspired dish. We are using lots of flavors like curry powder, turmeric, cumin, and this is really highlighting a type of lentil called red lentil, as well as sweet potatoes. And if you're not familiar with red lentils, let me show you what they look like here. I have taken them out of the container and rinsed them. They are a smaller lentil that cook pretty fast, and they do not hold their shape when they're cooked. They actually kind of fall apart. So they're going to give us sort of a creamier consistency to the broth, which is really nice. If you have any trouble finding red lentils, you can substitute with just a regular either green or black lentil. That's what's in this bag here. When I bought the red lentils, actually bought them a while back for another class, they came in a package, a Bob's Red Mill brand package, but sometimes you can also, it depends upon the grocery store, sometimes you can also find them in the bulk section if it's at like a Whole Foods or a store that has bulk items, where you can kind of scoop them out and measure. So red lentils, I'm gonna go ahead and I chopped a bunch of stuff already so that we can get this started cooking, because one thing about soups, as you probably know, they take a little while to cook. So, first time on this brand new induction stovetop, which is kind of exciting. All right, it's always nice to cook in a new kitchen. Let's see, it's getting warm in there, so that's good. I can hear it's turned on. So I'm at like a medium temperature. There we go. Okay. I'm using, as my cooking oil today, I'm using coconut oil. And this is flexible. If you already have another type of oil, like olive oil, that you really like and you already have on hand, you can just use that. If you have some coconut oil readily available, then use that. This kind of blends in to the ethnic, I would say Indian necessarily, but the ethnic flavors of this. So coconut oil is going in. It's cold in here, so the coconut oil is solid, but it will melt as soon as it hits the pan. So that's the coconut oil. It's gonna take me a minute here. This stovetop is heats up super fast. Right here, let me actually turn it down. Okay, so then I have already chopped up our onion, which is in this bowl here, and that is going in. You'll hear that start to cook. Oh my gosh, even just that alone with the coconut oil smells amazing. I can actually turn it down a little bit more. You're not really trying to brown this here. just saute at a low temperature. I'm going to be adding some ground spices to this, so I don't want it to burn. Be too hot and like burn those spices. Ooh, this thing is powerful. It's kind of nice. I have it at like a super low temperature, and it's still nice and hot. All right, so I'm gonna get my garlic ready. She's down in this bowl. Your recipe says 4 cloves of garlic, but these are actually pretty big, so I'm just gonna use 3 instead of 4. Use side. Got my cutting board here. I'm just gonna give them a nice whack to get that skin off of the garlic. We're going to give these a mince. Gosh, stuck on there. Okay. Just run my knife through. While those onions are cooking away. Oops, there's another skin. Let's get that out of there. Gather those up on my board. And as they kind of stick to your knife, see how that's sticking there? Just run your hand down, gather them all up in the middle. We're doing a mince on these, so we want them to be kind of small. And then I'm gonna go ahead and work on, before I add this in, I'm gonna go ahead and do the ginger as well. That is this right here. I've already peeled this. It comes as a large root with a peel on it. So I've already taken that off. In the second recipe that I'm gonna cook later after this one is finished, that recipe also uses ginger. So in that recipe, I'll show you how to peel it and sort of handle it before it looks like this. I'm working a little faster on this one so we can get it in the pot. And also so that we have plenty of time for questions at the end. But gosh, these 3 ingredients, onion, ginger, garlic, all amazing for flavor, but also for the health properties, anti-inflammatory properties. Garlic and onions have something called allicin, which is an antioxidant that's good for heart health. So super, super nice to add these to the soups. All right, so all of that is ready. So now, again, before I add this, I'm just gonna let the onion do its thing over here while I get the other ingredients ready. That way we can just add them all pretty quickly. Because once you add the ground spices, everything else kind of comes pretty quickly. So this is a sweet potato. I've already cut up and peeled 1 sweet potato in this container, and now I'm gonna work on cutting this sweet potato. These weren't super large. I feel like the more medium-sized potatoes are easier to cut. So I'm just cutting it into rounds first. Make sure your knife is sharp as always. I know I talk about that a lot in these classes, but another reminder to have a sharp knife. And then I'm gonna take each round and try to get them similar sizes if possible. The sweet potatoes, the color of this soup is interesting. It's all sort of like orange and red, but the sweet potatoes add, of course, a nice sweetness. And let's talk about substitutions too. We already talked about if you need to substitute the lentils But if you need to substitute the sweet potatoes for whatever reason, you can also use butternut squash. Is nice. It's not quite as sweet, but it cooks in the same exact amount of time as the sweet potato, and it's got that same orange color. All right, so those are finished, and now we just need to work on our red pepper. So that is also added to the soup. I'm gonna kind of cut around the core. Sometimes I feel like it's just helpful in cooking classes to like see how things are cut. So this one still has a few of the seeds attached. So I'm just gonna kind of rip those out. I'm gonna go into strips. And then across. Diced. Bell pepper, you can obviously substitute other colors of bell pepper if you'd like. I'm all about using what you already have on hand. Or hey, let's say if you've got a jar of like roasted peppers that you want to use up, you can use those as well. It's going to add a unique roasted flavor, but it will also taste good. Okay. That's good. So let me check on my onions over here. They've developed a little brown color, but they're softening up nicely. Okay, so now we're gonna add the spices. We've got 3 spices. So we've got cumin, about 1 teaspoon. Make sure the temperature is pretty low for this because these spices can burn. You have to kind of work fast. Okay. 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of turmeric, also another super nice health supportive spice for inflammation, gut health, you name it. Turmeric is pretty powerful. And then curry powder, which also has turmeric. It's a mix. Let's see, we're doing about a tablespoon of this. It is a mix, actually, of several different spices together. You can just eyeball these, they don't have to be exact. Let's see what all our curry powder has. Cumin, coriander, fenugreek, ginger, turmeric, dill, black pepper, red pepper, cardamom, mace, and cloves. That's a lot. Lots of flavor in that little jar. Okay, so let's give that a stir. In Indian cooking, they always add, as far as I know, they always add the ground spices in the beginning of the cooking process in with the oil. It really helps their flavors really kind of come out when they're added like this, as opposed to adding them in with the liquid of the soup. This almost just like, I don't know, adds extra flavor. It smells amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna add our garlic and ginger now. Give that a stir. Like I said, you kind of have to work quick at this point, so it's good to have everything prepped so that you can just kind of focus on stirring and not letting anything burn. So once you start smelling that garlic and ginger, that's a good thing, and then you can move on to the next step. Okay. This is the broth I'm using. I like this brand. If you have a homemade vegetable broth or a homemade chicken broth, you can also use that. I always talk about this one though. I like, if you're gonna buy it. Definitely go for low sodium though, because then you can control the amount of salt that you add to your recipe. Some of the ones that are not low sodium are pretty super high in sodium. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add the other ingredients. The red bell pepper. and the sweet potato. Give this a stir. These aren't really cooking at this point. They're just sort of mixing with all of the flavors. They're mostly gonna, these two vegetables are mostly gonna cook in the actual liquid. So the liquid is, well, we have our lentils. Put those in. They're already measured out. I rinsed these in water just to get any dust particles off of them. Get those in. And then shake. I actually have chicken broth here, even though our recipe is technically supposed to be vegetarian. But I only did that because they didn't sell the vegetable version of this brand. I just like it so much that I didn't want to substitute with another vegetable broth. But also I knew you guys wouldn't be able to enjoy eating it since you're at home. I'm sorry if there are any vegetarians out there. So this container holds 4 cups. So that's just like an easy thing that just keep in mind so you don't have to measure it. And it doesn't have to be exact either, so. All right, so that was 4 cups. I can see it needs more because the ingredients are not quite covered yet by the broth. I'm gonna go ahead and turn up the heat. That way it can start coming to a simmer. And then I'm gonna add, since this is 4 cups, I'm gonna add about half of it because I need 2 more cups. All right, that looks pretty good. Just make sure your vegetables are covered. A little bit more. Okay, as the lentils cook, they absorb that liquid, they kind of thicken up the soup. And then at the end, we will top it with some cilantro, which I can go ahead and get that chopped up. Actually, both recipes use some cilantro. So I just rinsed this in water. And then actually, it's still a little wet. So I'm gonna take a paper towel, just kind of wrap it in that, just kind of get off any excess water. And then with cilantro, it's nice. You do not have to take off each individual leaf from the stem. You can just kind of line it up on your board, give it a chop. You can eat those stems, they taste totally fine. Keep going until you get to a really thick part of the stem, and then you can save this for a vegetable stock or something else that you're cooking. They actually blend up really well if you want to use those in like in a blended recipe. So I'm just going to set this in here so it can be ready to go at the end. And that is that recipe. It's pretty straightforward. Like the flavors might be new, but the techniques of the cooking are pretty easy. Okay, so if you have questions about this recipe or any of the ingredients or anything, type them up into the chat box or hold on to them, write them down, and remember them for the end, because at the end, I'll stop and answer. All right, so I'm gonna cover this so that it can come up to a boil faster, and then I'm gonna start working on the other recipe. Let me switch gears here. So I'm gonna switch, actually I'll keep using this board. I'm gonna switch out the ingredients really fast, so bear with me here. Short intermission now, it's a good time to go to the bathroom too. Get a drink of water. Just give me a couple minutes to get set up for the other recipe. Are you going down there? Should I stay down there? Okay. All right, perfect. All right, I'm coming down to this side now. You can see the other half of the kitchen now. Let me fill this up with water. Okay, I'm getting the second pot ready. This is a Thai inspired recipe. And it uses rice noodles. You can also use rice, but rice noodles is a fun way to do it. So that's what we're using today. And that's what I'm going to cook here in this pot with rice noodles. That's just water. I'm going to bring it up to a boil. Grab a cutting board. Okay, cool. Perfect. So, recipe number 2, the Thai chicken coconut curry soup. This one is really, really good flavors. We're also using coconut oil again. So let me grab that. This is the broth. Coconut oil. Let me grab my clock. Track. Okay, so I have not prepped as many of the ingredients on this. Woohoo! Hello. Onion almost went flying across the room. So we're using onion in this. Before I get anything in the pot, I'm going to prep a few of these ingredients. Just taking off the peel here. This is a yellow onion. White onion would be fine too. I'm going to do a few horizontal cuts here. This is a awesome way to cut an onion. It takes some practice and it takes a sharp knife. But once you get it down, so you go horizontal, then vertical, and the opposite way. Vertical. Once you figure this out, it's just cutting an onion way faster and way easier. Okay, so that's our onion ready to go. We also have celery. Go ahead and prep that. So one of these, I had to make a substitution in this recipe. I was not able to find bok choy, which is totally fine. And you may not be able to find it either. So what I did was I upped. You guys know what bok choy is? I guess it's in the cabbage family. Super common in Asian cooking. So if you do have bok choy, what you're going to do for prepping that is slice the white or greenish stem pretty much like this. And then when you get to the leafy part, you're just going to remove that and save it till the end of cooking. So what I did instead, since I couldn't find bok choy, I doubled the celery, so you would still have more of that like stalky type crunch, I guess, in the soup. And then I'm going to add some spinach for the leafy part of it. So that's an easy substitution to make. I also could not find shiitake mushrooms, so we're using these baby portobellos. Sometimes they're called, what are they called? They have their name. Anyways, they're basically just like small portobello mushrooms. Those are always usually available in the store. You could also use button mushrooms if you want to. So I already washed these and took out the stem. So I'm just slicing them into smaller pieces. This soup is boiling a little too strong, so let me turn it down. Also, I'm going to give it a stir. You want it at a simmer. It's got to cook those potatoes, so you definitely need it at a simmer, but it's not need to be at a rolling boil. Still learning our every stovetop is completely different. So I'm still learning our stovetop here. Okay, so mushrooms. Back to the mushrooms. We only need about a cup of these. Another super amazing, healthy health supportive ingredient here. I'm just going like roughly for everything to be like roughly the same size. It's a good way to think about your ingredients when you're chopping them up, especially for a soup, because everything is roughly like bite size, same size. Okay, that's probably enough. Now we have garlic again, somewhere over here, and this is our ginger that has the peel attached. So let's go ahead before I do that stuff. Let's get our onions and celery going. Take a little while to cook. Okay. Swirling around here. Right. Scrape it off the side. There we go. Onions and celery. Put it in. All right, so I'm gonna hold off on the mushrooms until those get a little soft. And I'm gonna work on the garlic. Just as before, 2 cloves of garlic. These are more of a standard size, so I didn't have to reduce it. Always take that into consideration when you're cooking. You don't have to follow the recipe if it doesn't make sense for your ingredients. Okay. I have a couple unique ingredients in this. One of the things listed here is green curry paste. That might be a new ingredient to you. It's usually found in the grocery store on the Asian or like ethnic aisles, near wherever you would find coconut milk usually. And I'll show you what that looks like. I actually had to buy a new brand of that this time. The one that I usually find is called Thai Kitchen, and it's in a small little glass jar. I didn't find it this time for whatever reason. I was having to do like all kinds of substitutions all day, which is totally fine. It just goes to show you that you can make it work. So I'll show you that here in a second. This is the ginger. This has a very thin skin on it that needs to be peeled. So you can use a couple different ways you can do it. This works actually pretty nicely with this vegetable peeler. You can, if that doesn't, if you don't want to do it that way, you can also just take your knife and kind of square it off. Because it's got all these really knobby pieces on it. But the good news is that the skin is super thin. So pretty easy just to kind of work your way around. Another technique is to actually just use a spoon. It's thin enough that a spoon can kind of slice through it. So that's the ginger. It's going to get minced up exactly like the ginger. Keep adjusting the other seasons up. You guys are gonna use the stovetop is actually pretty powerful, so that's actually good news. All right, so back and forth with your knife, run your knife on the top, get it into a small piece. You don't want to, eat or chop down on a big chunk of ginger. It's very good. Try to mince that up small like the garlic. Okay. So now, let's start. Ooh, that was a good one. Okay. Let me stir this soup over here really quickly. The lentils are starting to like do exactly what I said at the beginning. They kind of like fall apart. They do not keep their shape. That's exactly what we want them to do. Okay. So now back to our Thai chicken curry recipe. We're going to add the mushrooms now. Stir those around. I'm going to kind of hurry this along so that we end on time. But if you're cooking this at home, just let these kind of soften in a minute or two. Next, I'm going to add the garlic, ginger, and the curry paste. So let me show you the curry paste that I found. Here. Okay. It looks like this. One that I found. So it's green curry paste on the front. The brand is Thai Taste, not Thai Kitchen, but Thai Taste. And then, like, I popped the top off, and it was in this bag. The other one is not. The other one is just in the jar. So this is found in the aisle in the grocery store, and then once you open it, you can have to refrigerate it, but it lasts a long time. Especially if you like these flavors. This is like a super versatile ingredient. You don't have to just limit it to this recipe. Okay. So water is boiling on the noodle. For the noodle. So I'm gonna just leave that there for a second. I'm gonna work on getting everything into our pot first before I do the noodles. So we need about 3 tablespoons of the curry paste. This is flexible though. Since I'm new to this brand, some of these can be pretty spicy. Let me read you the ingredients first so you have an idea of what's in here. Garlic, green chili, onion, lemongrass, black galangal, fresh galangal, which is another type of fruit similar to ginger, kefir, lime, and spices. So it's not spicy, but it does have like a little. It can't have like a little text to it. So I'm just, and you can also make this yourself. If you Google Thai green curry paste, there's recipes for this. You buy all the ingredients. You can get galangal. You can probably get that at the Asian market. You can actually make this. Super awesome. All right, so that just kind of goes with the other ingredients. Smells amazing. And the nice thing is that when you combine this paste with the liquid, and it's smells good. Actually, I haven't made this soup in a really long time. Smelling really good. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding my liquids. I've got coconut milk. I just already took the lid off, but you'll see that there's like the coconut milk also has like it's not fully shaken. Like some of it's liquid and some of it has this, the milk is like separated, which is all come together. Don't worry, just start that. That's not a big deal. You don't have to mix that up. As it heats. That's the milk, and then we're gonna add some chicken broth. About 1.5 cups. Again, you're going to kind of definitely make sure you cover all your ingredients. Give them a little room to float. We're going to add noodles to this too, so I'm just going to go with that thing. I bought a rotisserie cooked chicken, already cooked, so I just chopped up the breast of that for about 1 cup of cooked chicken. We are gonna add salt. Not a lot, that's much. About a quarter teaspoon. Give that a stir. And then we're gonna add the lime and the noodles at the end. So we're gonna bring this up to a simmer. Okay, that's fine. And as it simmers, that coconut milk will mix right in. Okay, let's talk about the noodles. First one. This is at like medium low and it's like going crazy. So funny. Those potatoes need more time. So, okay, so the noodles. You can serve the Thai curry soup with rice, cooked rice, or you can go for like an Asian noodle. This is not it's not traditional ramen style noodles, but these work pretty nice because they're the kind of Asian noodle that works well in a soup. So you can use, these are rice ramen, so that means they're gluten-free. They're made from millet and brown rice, so they also have a little bit of fiber, which is nice. So you can go this route, or just look on the Asian aisle. There's tons of Asian noodles. And just look for some. If they have a picture of a soup on the front with it, you'll know that those are like appropriate for a soup. But honestly, any of the Asian noodles, and it's nice because if you are eating gluten-free, you can get them made from rice too. So they're easy gluten-free. So this particular kind comes like this. The instructions on the back are very simple. You add them to the boiling water, you kind of help them separate a little bit with the fork, and then you let them cook for like 20 minutes. And then you drain them, and you do rinse them with cold water. That kind of helps. That's why I'm not putting it in the soup liquid, because you do need to rinse them to kind of remove some of the starch. So for this, I have a pretty small size pot over there, so I'm just going to do 2 of these, drop them in. I'm going to grab a fork. So let them cook for about a minute in there, and we'll start to try to separate them a little bit. Checking on my scoops. Now, when we talk about this, I never added any salt to this, and that was on purpose. My experience with lentils, any style of lentils, is that they need to kind of cook and break down, or if they're the black lentils, they need to fully cook before adding any salt. Otherwise, they tend to stay tough and not absorb the flavors as well. That's why I'm not a food scientist, but that's just my experience. So I'm gonna wait. I wait until like towards the end of cooking for lentils to add any salt. All right, so I'm just kind of poking my fork into the pot with the noodles. They're not ready to separate yet. This one's starting to come to a simmer. See how we're doing? Okay, so we'll hang out here for now. We'll let these cook for another 5 minutes and we'll do questions. As soon as this one comes to a boil or a simmer, I'm going to add the spinach. That's very fast cooking. If you've ever cooked spinach before, it only takes like a minute or so. The liquid is hot. So you can see these are still, but they're starting to separate. I can see that. See, they're starting to separate a little bit. The instructions just say, kind of work them apart a little bit. They cook really nice and fast. Let's see, let's look at the ingredients on this. It is brown rice flour and millet flour. And the fiber, it's got 2 grams of fiber and a half of these squares. So it's pretty good. So I'm just kind of working them apart. Total cooking time is only 5 minutes. And then let's see, I'm gonna get a strainer ready. So I can take these back to the sink. I'm just gonna get rid of these lentils that are still in there. Trash, take this out. Oh yeah, see, now they're really easy to separate, although some of them are still kind of chunked together, so keep working them with your fork. My kids actually really like these Asian noodles. On the back of the box, there is, on the back of this package, there's an idea for mix for like a recipe. So it's super easy. It's sesame oil, soy sauce, some green onions, just mixed with the noodles. And then you can serve them with like a protein. And kids like that. All right, okay, that's done. So I'm gonna see, how do I turn it off? So this is going to the back to get strained, and remember we have to rinse it with cold water. Okay, I'm gonna wait until the end, until this is done cooking completely to add it in, because I don't want this to cook anymore. So this is going way too crazy of a boil. Turn it down. Oops. I'll go ahead and add our spinach. It's kind of a lot here, let's see. Spinach is, I feel like it's always so hard to eyeball because it shrinks so much. We'll go ahead and just add all of it, you know, what the heck. Okay. Okay. It'll wilt down very fast. And then to finish the cooking on this, we're gonna add lime juice. It really brightens the flavor. So I know this is like a lot of ingredients. This is a lot of ingredients, but it's kind of worth it for this one. This is definitely a soup worthy of like company, of like guests or somebody special coming through. So for the lime, if I was cooking this at home and I had a lot of time, I would let this continue. But the lime, you just put your fork in there, give it a squeeze. Limes don't have seeds, so it's pretty easy. You just kind of poke with the fork and twist, and the juice comes out. You don't need a special tool. You know, you can use one if you have something. I don't know what the lime juice does to it, but it really makes the flavors pop. That's a common thing that Thai recipes do. They add that whole lime juice in it. You're like, what's that? Okay. And then at the end, and then you would add the noodles. So I've got 1 more minute till questions. So both of these soups need more time. The potatoes in this are not quite done yet, but I want you guys to see what they look like in these. So I'm gonna grab these bowls and I'm gonna ladle out a little bit so you guys can see, and I'm gonna continue cooking. So here's you guys can see that 2 soup bowls. Let me grab ladle here. So for the Thai chicken, I would take a little bit of noodle down into the bowl. You can go ahead and add it in there too if you like. This is another way to do it. So noodle in there. Let's grab our ladle. Soup on top. You can change it up chicken wise if you don't want to use chicken for whatever reason. You can use like a seafood, like like a white fish or a shrimp. And then I top it with a little bit of cilantro. So that's the Thai chicken soup. And then this is the red lentil. All right, and the color on that one. A little bit of cilantro. All right, cool. So we're on time for questions. So how do we want to do the questions? Katie, let me know if we should, or what do we want me to read them or?
Yeah, if anybody has
Hold
any
on a second. We're going to figure out to do the questions here. Just a second.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, if you want to go ahead and enter them in the chat box, then I can ask Ashley.
Okay. So let's do that. All right, so I'm at the computer. Just bear with me.
Okay. Thank you. All of this looks so good. I wish we were all there in person to smell and eat.
I know. Let me adjust that. Okay. All right, so.
And again, if anybody wants to access any of these recipes, you can on our website, cscatlanta.org. If you just find the nutrition tab and scroll down, there's a link to today's recipe and to past presentations. And you can also find any of our past cooking demos in that tab as well. You can watch those and find the recipes on that page. So one of the questions that came in was, I know it may change the flavor, but if your family has allergies to coconut, are there any good substitutions for coconut milk?
Okay, coconut milk substitutions. I don't think so, to be honest with you. You could try this recipe without coconut and just use more chicken broth or vegetable broth. But honestly, it's not gonna give you the same flavor. I always say there's substitutions, but for this one, you can try it if you want, but I think you're really gonna miss something by not having the coconut in there because it's a pretty major flavor and ingredient in this. And even if you're gonna use, I'm thinking of like another milk alternative, like almond milk, or even cow's milk, it's just not, you can try it. I've never tried it. That's a very good question. You know what? Yeah, does this person eat like another kind of milk? That might be your best substitution. This can is about, for the coconut milk, it's about, I don't know, like 1.5 cups. So you could try substituting another type of milk. You just want to make sure it's unsweetened, it doesn't have any like added flavors like vanilla or anything like that. And I would try that. But honestly, it's gonna be a little different because the coconut, I don't know what the coconut milk does, but it is definitely a unique flavor that's hard to replicate.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like another milk is an option, so that might be good and may keep the same sort of consistency, I'm guessing.
Yeah, try it. It wouldn't hurt.
And then another participant asked, and I think we talked a little bit about this in the last cooking demo too, do you have any suggestions on how to keep your knives sharp or places to go to get your knives sharpened?
Yeah. So yeah, we did talk about it a little bit last time. So I've gone to Cook's Warehouse before. You take your knives into the store, wrap them in newspaper or something, and they send them out to somebody who has like a special machine to do it, and then come out a couple of days later. So Cook's Warehouse, any of their locations will work. There's other cooking stores that will do it. Someone last time said, remind me if you remember, Cutco will sharpen, even though that's a brand of knife, they will sharpen any brand in their store. What you can do is Google a cooking store near where you live and just call them and ask them. or call Cook's Warehouse. If it's not close to you, maybe they know of another location. But most big cooking specialty stores should do night sharpening. And it's usually about like $5 a night, anywhere from $5 to $7 a night. And it's totally worth it. Do it as like a Valentine's Day gift to yourself or something. It's definitely helps, because cutting is such a major part of cooking. If your knives are dull, that just makes everything more challenging in the kitchen.
Yeah, and what are some signs you could look for that your knives are getting dull? Kind of something you could start noticing.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a good question. So let me get a paper towel real quick. I'll show you on this knife. Okay, so it's kind of hard if you don't already have a sharp knife, but take the sharpest knife you have in your kitchen that you think is the sharpest, and then just hold it upright. You're gonna bring your thumb over the top, and you're gonna feel the difference. I mean, I can even, use this as an example, like going like this, it's sort of a flat top versus this one, which is sharp. You're not gonna cut yourself, but just feel it and get used to what it feels like to feel that sharp. Feel your knives in your kitchen. If it doesn't feel like you're gonna cut your finger when you do that, then they're not sharp enough. Like when I do it on this one, I almost feel like if I push too hard, my finger is gonna like draw blood on me. So that's like the easiest way I think to tell whether or not it needs to be sharpened.
Okay.
All right, so what's our next question?
Someone did ask, where did you buy the noodles for the chicken soup?
Okay, these noodles came from Fresh Market, although I have seen these at Costco. The only challenge with the Costco one is that you have to commit to a lot. But anyways, this is a pretty common brand. They should have it in most grocery stores. If they have a good ethnic department in the grocery store, they should have this brand, or they should have something similar. So this is called Lotus Foods. I feel like it's a pretty major one now. Okay.
All right. One of the other questions were, I think you mentioned an ingredient that you said your children really like with the Asian noodles. Could you remind us what that is?
Okay, yeah. So I think it says it on the back here. Let me just be sure. Okay, so it doesn't actually give this recipe suggestion on the back of this one, but another one that I bought, which was the same package, did actually have the recipe recommendation. And it is soy sauce, low sodium soy sauce, and toasted sesame oil, which is a really bold flavor, and then just some green onions and cilantro mixed together. It actually looks exactly like this picture, and it does say they have recipes on their website. But these are great in stir fries, cold noodle dishes. They cook really fast. They do contain fiber, and they're like, I don't know, they just give you that like Asian, like if you're craving Asian food, they're like a super nice noodle for that.
Okay. And then someone else asked, have you ever made these in an Instant Pot or pressure cooker, and how might that change things?
Okay, yeah, so I have not, and that is a very good question, because I always like to use the pressure cooker with soups. It's a very good way, or Instant Pot. So things that I've noticed when I've tried to convert any recipe from a soup, like from a regular pot to the Instant Pot or to the pressure cooker, is that not as much liquid evaporates. So you may have to reduce the liquid a little bit, not much, but either add the same amount of liquid, don't add more. The same amount of liquid or a little bit less. And then usually you're cutting the cooking time in half. So from the time that you bring it up to pressure, you start your timer. If this says 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you're gonna go 15 to 10 minutes at pressure. And then you can bring the pressure down either naturally or like quickly. If you've done it before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that should do it. I mean, the cooking time on the lentil, I think the lentils would be a really nice one to do in the Instant Pot. or the pressure cooker. This one is, the cooking time is pretty fast because you've already got cooked chicken, and none of these vegetables take a long time to break down. But definitely the red lentil one would be nice in the Instant Pot. And actually, we were just talking before this class started about updating some of our equipment in the kitchen. And one of the things that I think we might like to have, you guys should tell me if you want to do more recipes in the Instant Pot or pressure cooker, which they're basically the same thing. I don't know, does that interest you guys? Give me a thumbs up if you think we can tally up. If that's a piece of cooking equipment that you have and that you like, we can definitely do that, incorporate that more. So let us know if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of thumbs up. I know I do love the time it saves in the Instant Pot or a pressure cooker. But you always have to, I feel like I have to remind myself too, you have to allot time for it to come to get to that pressurized point.
Right.
Which sometimes
yes.
takes patience when you are in a hurry. And then another person asked, how do these soups generally freeze? Could you store them in a freezer?
Oh yeah. Okay, so that's a good point. Both of these can freeze, any soup can freeze. So what I do is make sure that it's cool. If you're trying to get it into the freezer quickly, then you might have to, once it's done cooking, you might have to ladle out into smaller containers for it to cool fast enough in your refrigerator. But you definitely want to make sure it's cool, at least at room temperature, before you put it into your freezer container. You can use any freezer-friendly container, like a Ziploc bag or a glass dish, but you just want to make sure you don't fill it completely full. So you give it at least a quarter of the space at the top or in the bag to expand as it freezes, and then you're good to go. If you're using a bag, I like to get the soup in the bag, get out as much air as possible, zip it, label it first, and freeze it flat on a flat surface so that it's freezing like this. And then once it's frozen, you can store them upright, and that saves you a lot more space in your freezer. But yeah, and then when you're thawing, just take it straight from the freezer, put it in a pot, like try to open it. You may have to thaw it a little bit to get it out of the container. But if it's a plastic bag, you just kind of rip the whole thing open, get it into your pot. You may have to add like a tiny bit of liquid so that it doesn't burn when it's reheating, so like a little bit of water in there, but then you don't have to like thaw the whole thing ahead of time. You can just thaw it in the pot, and it's just, usually soups are amazing. With this soup, I would wait to cook the noodles until the time when you're eating it. I wouldn't freeze the noodles on this one, but everything else in there can freeze. This one can freeze as is. All right.
Is the general rule of thumb eating a frozen meal sort of like 3 months after freezing it?
Yeah, that's a general, like 3 months is like a super safe timeline. But honestly, if you go 4 or 5 months, it should be fine. The thing that really happens is not like food safety reason. It's more that the freezer kind of breaks down the ingredients and the integrity of the soup. It might, just like the vegetables may like be sort of falling apart more. I don't think it's going to hurt you if you let it go like 6 months. But it's just the quality of the soup, the texture and everything just may not be as good as it was in the start.
Okay.
So I would do like 6 months, maybe 6 months max. But 3 months is a good goal.
Okay. I think that's it for all the questions. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for joining us again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Good. And thank you, everybody, for coming. Look for the recording of today's program on the website as well later on this week. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. If you're interested in other live or recorded programs, please visit the online program tab of our website, cscatlanta.org, or follow us on Facebook. We'll be sharing additional information on upcoming programs.